beneath me. I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by that.
Puny god.
Hey guys, since we're still waiting for Phase 4 of the MCU to finally start going, I figured we might as well take a little bit of time to look at the characters in the MCU who have come and gone. Namely, the villains, and how powerful they have been in Phase 1 through 3. So in this video, we're going to take a look at all the previous, so far, Marvel villains and rank them, and I'm going to give you my personal list of the top 5 most powerful Marvel villains that we've seen so far. Here we go. So before we go into categorizing who I think the most powerful villain in the MCU so far has been, I need to first define what it means to be powerful and what I'm going to be ranking each of these contestants in. So I have 2 categories that we're going to look at. The amount of destruction that they were going to cause if they hadn't been stopped or defeated, and the amount of destruction they had successfully caused. So we're not going to be looking at Killmonger in this video despite how good of a villain he is, or other villains like Ironmonger, just because they did not actually cause that much destruction, no matter how good their plot lines or their backstory actually was. So we're just going to ignore all the mongers and look at the people who actually successfully or would have successfully caused a huge amount of destruction to the world. And with that, in 5th place, we have Malekith. Do you guys remember him? Probably not. Malekith was from the Thor: The Dark World movie. A movie that a lot of people overlooked and very few watched, though Avengers Endgame did manage to keep it relevant by throwing us a backstory which involved us going back to the scenes of that movie once again. But Malekith's overall goal was to turn all of reality into darkness by using the ether. And so that is a pretty substantial goal, and if he was successful, he could have possibly destroyed the entire universe. Or just plunged it into darkness. Honestly, I was a bit confused about that. And also, would it have just been the entire universe, or just the 9 realms? Honestly, that movie was kind of a mess. But he nearly accomplished his goal, only being stopped in the very end by Thor and the gang. But he still ranks pretty low on the all-time villains list for the main reason that he basically didn't do anything for 5,000 years. He had a plan back 5,000 years ago to get the ether to destroy the universe or plunge it into darkness or something. And he didn't do anything about it for 5,000 years. So, ultimately, it didn't really cause all that much destruction. And he could have done a lot better if he just took a little bit of initiative. So that brings us to number 4, Dormammu. Dormammu is a person who, or entity, space being, thing, that actually did work at his plan. Dormammu has been eating and devouring worlds and entire universes for a long time, and he has been on the hunt to destroy Earth. It's unsure so far how destructive it is when Dormammu destroys a dimension, especially since, a dimension isn't a thing you can consume. Seriously, Hollywood needs to figure out the difference between a dimension and a universe. But even so, Dormammu comes extremely close to swallowing the Earth at the end of Doctor Strange, and he's only stopped using a very complicated piece of time magic and a beautiful time loop that has resulted in many memes since then. Now, Dormammu could have ranked higher, except he really wasn't eating that many worlds all that fast. It seems like he's basically been sitting around waiting for Earth to be viable for a long time, and he's another villain who is definitely losing some rankings on this list because he's just not going out there and getting it done. So that takes us to our first villain who's actually going out there and making his plan happen. That's it. He is working on it. And that is Ego, the living planet. Ego is a celestial, a god in the MCU, whose goal is to turn the entire universe into him. He wants to become everything. He wants to become much more powerful. And to do this, he has planted his seed on many, many planets. Yeah, it kind of sounds weird. Anyways, Ego has been working at this for probably hundreds of years based off the montage we get on how many children Ego actually has and the tomb of literal mass grave of skulls of Ego's failed children. And when we get to the end of the movie, we can actually see the amount that Ego would have gotten accomplished if it hadn't been stopped by the Guardians. Ego's range was expanding very quickly and was imminently about to take over every world he had ever gone to. And we're not sure how many worlds Ego has traveled to across his vast, millennial-long lifetime, but it's definitely a lot based off that pile of skulls he has going on in his basement. So kudos to Ego, and he gets a 3rd spot ranking on this list just because of his go-getter attitude. Unfortunately, it's still not that high because he did have to wait for Star-Lord to appear before enacting his plan, and before Star-Lord had appeared there, he was basically not causing any destruction at all except for one child at a time, which is still pretty sad, but doesn't get you to be ranked as number 1 on this list. And that takes us to number 2, the goddess of death herself, Hela. Hela was the first villain on this list who really wasn't waiting for anything. Hela just went out and got the killing started. The second she was freed in Thor Ragnarok, she immediately returned to Asgard and laid down the law, resulting in her killing hundreds, if not thousands, of her own people. But we see her history across the history of the 9 realms, and she has wiped out over and over again massive amounts of the population. She will do whatever it takes to conquer the 9 realms and the entire universe. And unlike pretty much everyone beneath her on this list, she didn't wait at all. She was not waiting for a power boost or some allies. She was actively going at defeating and killing her enemies until the power of Odin was used to trap her in hell. Yeah, one of the most powerful characters in the MCU had to be using a significant portion of their power in order to keep her from just walking around, murdering for breakfast, murdering for dinner. That was the only strategy to hold her back, and that's why she ranks at number 2, because she really succeeded at living up to her title as the goddess of death. She wasn't here to monologue or tell stories, she was here to kill, and that's what she did. But going planet to planet, walking around and conquering, is a pretty slow way of actually making your impact on the world. And a much more intelligent and ambitious villain could go out and do this on hundreds of worlds at the same time. And that brings us to the number 1 most powerful villain in the MCU so far, Thanos. Yeah, I know, that's not super groundbreaking or surprising, but based on the categories that I set out as what would rank him as the most powerful villain, he does great in every category. Thanos successfully manages to destroy half the life on the universe for 5 years. In fact, he dies before that gets fixed, so you can argue that in his lifetime he succeeded at his goal. And I don't need to break down the math to you on half the life of the entire universe is far higher than the kill counts of every single one of these other villains put together. But what really puts Thanos on the top of this list is the fact that he was not really waiting to be able to achieve his end goal to get started on his plan. Thanos didn't wait to get the Infinity Gauntlet and all 6 stones before enacting his plan. Thanos was out there walking around, going planet to planet, executing his mission, killing off hundreds of billions of people across the universe. And what's more than that, Thanos understood the point of leadership and the value of delegation, so that in order to really achieve his goal, he delegated some of these tasks to other villains who would get the job done for him. He used Loki and Ronan in order to go out and wipe out life on other planets and conquer them for him instead of having to go out himself. Now, ultimately, both of these two were unsuccessful, but you have to imagine he has the entire Black Order working for him, and he sends them out on missions too. So it's quite likely that this strategy has worked for him, and the Black Order has been able to successfully capture and take planets for him. And that's why Thanos, for his go-getter attitude and his can-do spirit, is gonna rank as the most powerful villain so far in the MCU. So guys, what do you think? Is my list completely wrong? Am I undermining your favorite villain? Should I be nicer to the Mongers? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!